Hi, I'm Candy Duncan, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Lewisburg Area. I'd like to welcome you to our candidates panel for the November 2021 election. Tonight's panel will feature candidates for Mayor of New Berlin and candidates for the New Berlin Borough Council. Before we start, we start all of our meetings and our events and our forums with the reading of our nonpartisan statement. So we will start this meeting the same way. The League of Women Voters of the Lewisburg Area is nonpartisan, meaning it neither endorses nor opposes a political party or candidate for political office. The choice made in 1920 by the National League to neither support nor oppose any political party or candidate for public office continues today to ensure that the League's voice is heard above the tumult of party politics. Nonpartisanship towards candidates and political parties is critical to the effectiveness of the League's unique voter service and citizen information work. In keeping with the League's goals of voter education and civil discourse, we provide forums to educate, to encourage thoughtful consideration and important and timely topics. The League values the differing viewpoints held by all attendees at these events. We request your cooperation in providing an atmosphere for listening and respectful discussions. We ask you abide by and respect this nonpartisan policy in your words and actions. Now, I'm going to introduce our moderator for the evening. Janice Bigelow is a longtime member of the League of Women Voters. She is a seasoned moderator and she is a past president of this local league. So, Janice.
Hello. Well, we're going to begin this session with introductory comments that will include guidelines for this event. The League encourages informed and active participation in government. This event is part of our ongoing voter education effort to help voters make informed decisions in elections. We sponsor these nonpartisan candidates events to help voters become better informed about the candidates running for contested positions. One of the goals of this event is to create an atmosphere that is a comfortable forum for the candidates to answer questions from voters. This is an opportunity for the candidates to focus on the ideas and issues that distinguish them from the other candidates on the panel. We believe that the hallmark of democracy is the willingness of our community to treat each other with courtesy and respect. It is in that spirit that we are here today to engage in a vital part of the democratic process. This is where candidates have an opportunity to answer questions about the important issues that confront our communities while acting in a civil manner. At today's event, the panelists will be asked questions that were received from people who submitted questions to our League's email address, as well as questions prepared by League members. This event is being recorded without an audience and will then be posted on YouTube as in its unedited form. League questions were screened using the following criteria: that they are relevant to current issues and to the office being considered, and they are carefully phrased to prevent bias and partisanship. Questions submitted by email to this event were screened using the following criteria: they are relevant to all candidates for the office in question, they are comprehensive, they are not inflammatory or a gratuitous attack on any other candidate, and to avoid duplicate questions being asked. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their opening statement, 2 minutes for a closing statement, 1 minute to answer questions, and 30 seconds to give a rebuttal response if they choose to do that. I will read each question to the candidates, and those questions will appear simultaneously in the chat box for review. Candidates, please open your chat. The timer today is my husband, Fred Bigelow. When there are 30 seconds left to finish an answer to a question, a a yellow paddle will be held up. When the time is up, a red card will go up. At that time, candidates should finish the sentence and stop. When presenting a rebuttal, candidates will have 30 seconds to speak. A yellow card indicating 15 seconds will be held up. When the red card is held up, the candidates should finish their sentence and stop. We ask that all candidates honor the time constraints. Our panel today will consist of candidates for Mayor of New Berlin and candidates for the New Berlin Borough Council. All candidates for the office of Mayor and Borough Council of New Berlin were invited to attend this event. We are grateful to those who accepted our invitation and are in attendance today. A reminder to our audience that the mayor is the chief law enforcement officer of the borough, the executive administrator of the police department, and the elected official who takes charge during the time of an emergency. The mayor attends and takes part in the monthly borough council meetings and votes in case of a tie, unless it involves the hiring or firing of police personnel. The mayor has the power to sign or veto ordinances and regulations, as well as the responsibility for their enforcement. The term of office for the mayor is 4 years. There are 2 candidates for mayor in New Berlin to fill one position. The 2 candidates for this office are here today. They are Scott Benfer and Nancy Showers. There are 7 borough councils with half elected every 2 years. Members meet once monthly and are responsible for enacting, revising, repealing, and amending ordinances and resolutions that govern and are beneficial to the borough, but are not inconsistent with the laws of the Commonwealth. There are 6 candidates running for 3 positions on the Borough Council. 5 of those candidates are here tonight. They are David Farmer, Julianne Finkbiner, Bonnie Hamilton, Michael Palermo, David Wertz. And so we can now begin with the opening statements. The candidates will have 2 minutes to give this statement. And a reminder that you will be given a 30-second sign to remind you to finish up your sentence and stop. The first candidate to speak tonight will be the mayor candidates, the first candidates, and we will begin with Mr. Benfer.
Thank you, Janice. I appreciate the opportunity to speak and to share with you tonight. And I would like to say that although my wife and I are not long life citizens of New Berlin, we've come to love New Berlin. We've chose New Berlin for its quiet, small town feel. And we have children now who live here, and we have grandchildren who live here. And we have chose to put our roots down here. And I am running for mayor because I want to continue that heritage of the small town feel. And I believe wholeheartedly, my wife and I both, that our #1 goal for the town of New Berlin is the protection. And one of the safety of our citizens and our safety of our residents, I think that should be the #1 goal of all citizens. And I believe that that is #1 achieved by supporting our police department. Second is working in unity and drawing together, that all of our citizens work together, no matter what our differences may be, that we're willing to sit down and have a conversation and work through our differences and support one another and just put aside all of our differences. And I believe unity in our set aside our politics. And I thank you for your time.
Ms. Showers.
I've lived here for 2 years, or I did live here for 2 years, moved away, and then returned to marry the hometown boy called John. Even bought the same house again. And everyone has their New Berlin story, their own New Berlin story. And mine continues. I've lived here for 40 years and I've been right here. I've been here raising a family of 4 children, 5 dogs and 1 cat, and running a successful business called the Inn at New Berlin. And I just want to reference Summers on Penns Creek, part of the New Berlin experience. John and I have extended family across the country, and annually we try to get together somewhere amid a handful of more distant locations. The family favorite to this day is the day we all plopped kayaks in Penns Creek and floated from the pavilion to New Berlin. 2 mothers were appalled that son Ross had rented kayaks, even for the youngest girls who had never kayaked before, and they loved it. So when you love something, you get involved to make it even better. And over the past few years, it seems clear that things have changed regarding New Berlin's charm, its quaintness, and its irresistible reputation. It's positive. It's so positive that folks are interested in making their voices heard, and some are more vocal. A lot of folks want to be heard, but haven't been asked. And I'm ready to listen to a lot of people. My position is
Okay, we will now hear from the candidates for Borough Council, beginning with Mr. Farmer.
Thank you. I've been in New Berlin for 25 years, and I really like living in a small town. One consequence of being a small town is that you need a relatively large proportion of people to serve public office. If New Berlin were 10 times larger, we would still need just 1 mayor and the same number of borough council members. So I think it is important for more people to step up and be willing to serve, and that includes me. It's great that we have 8 people running for office in New Berlin, which is the most I think I've ever seen. What I can contribute to the Borough Council is good leadership. I don't mean visionary leadership trying to change the world. I mean competent organizational leadership, running good meetings, hearing and responding to people, and building consensus. There are 7 good people on the Borough Council, all of whom have the best interests for New Berlin. But I've been to a lot of meetings, and I see that the Borough Council suffers from a lack of good leadership. I can help the Borough Council work better together and work better with the community. Thank you.
Okay, next will be Ms. Finkbiner.
In 2005, I found myself beginning to grump about the borough and how things were being done. Instead of continuing to do that and remaining ignorant of the processes, I decided to get involved instead. My family has always been active in local, state, and national politics. I did a write-in campaign because there was an opening on council. I was sworn into my first term in 2006. At that time, I was the only woman. Today, there is only 1 man on council. In New Berlin, it is all about who is interested in helping out and not gender or party. I am an accountant by trade, so I have always served on the finance committee. I have been chosen by my peers on council to serve as president of council for my last 3 terms, or 12 years. I try to be fair and balanced, and since my only power as president is to run the meetings and set the agenda, I can't even make a motion. I try to give every person on council a voice and keep things running smoothly throughout the meetings. Being on council is a privilege, and it is important that we do not have a personal agenda as council members. We make a commitment to the citizens who elected us to spend their tax money responsibly on services that benefit everyone, not just a few. We must think of everyone when we make decisions, not just a minority.
Okay. The next person will be Ms. Hamilton.
Hello, I'm running for council this time. I've served the last 4 years as mayor of New Berlin. Like others, I looked around and saw that there was a vacuum. No one was running in 2017 for mayor there. And actually there weren't enough people running for council either. So it's great that this year we actually have a contested election and can have a free space of ideas. So I lodged a successful writing campaign and I've loved being mayor. That's included being very involved in the activities committee with New Berlin Day. We built a butterfly garden in the Commons, and especially helping rebuild the police force and helping write ordinances. So I believe that I can bring people together, and I want to serve on council so that I can transition into a different role and serve the people more directly. I believe in community. I believe in a small town feel. I'm raising my family here. I have 2 small children, and I want the New Berlin that people talk about of yore, that people talk about how we all came together. And I found that. I found community with my neighbors. I found friendship with my neighbors. And I think when you find that, it's your duty to serve. So I look forward to serving New Berlin in any capacity I can. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Palermo.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Michael Palermo. I've been a resident of New Berlin for over 42 years. I retired from the state working as a licensing inspector. While in New Berlin, I've served on the Lions Club. I've audited the books several years, and I'm currently a member of the municipal authority. I'm running to provide input as to possible ways to improve services for the community. I'd like to improve communications and include others in the meetings and get feedback to members of the community. Thank you.
Mr. Wertz.
Thank you, Mayor, for the introduction. I lived in this little town for 28 years now. This is a great little town. To me, I was a volunteer firefighter here at New Berlin for 20 years. I just recently retired over the last year from the Department of Justice, the Bureau of Prisons, after 20 years. I really enjoy helping people in the community. And to me, it doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. As a council member, we have to do what's right for the whole town, not just one side of the party. It has to be for everybody. And I'm really looking forward to getting elected and working with everybody in the Borough Council. Thank you.
All right, that finishes our opening statements, and we will now move on to the questions. The first 4 questions that I will be asking will come from the community. And the very first question is for the candidates for mayor. This is a reminder that you will have 1 minute to answer a question. So to the mayoral candidates, this is your question. How do you see the role of mayor in New Berlin? Among the duties of the mayor that I listed earlier, which interest you the most? Now, would you like me to reread that description? Ms. Showers and Mr. Benfer.
Yes, please.
All right. The mayor is the chief law enforcement officer, the executive administrator of the police department, and the official who takes charge in the time of emergency. The mayor takes part in the monthly borough council meetings, votes in cases of a tie, unless it involves the firing or hiring of police personnel. And the mayor has the power to sign or veto ordinances and regulations, as well as the responsibility for their enforcement. We will begin this with Ms. Showers.
I think all of those roles are extremely important. I look forward to participating in all of them. The part that interests me most is the taking the part in the monthly meetings. The monthly meetings, I think, have evolved into an us versus them situation, and I look forward to encouraging some greater sense of rapport and understanding between all of the members, not just the council members, but the council members and the mayor. And I have a vision and a strategy and some ideas for making that happen so that no one has to come to a meeting with gut reactions and feeling stressed out and leaving the same way. And I think we can work together and make this a more fun place to work and be a vital part of our community. And that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Benfer.
Thank you again for the question. Again, I would say I was looking forward to enjoying all parts of that, just as Ms. Showers has stated. However, the position as overseer of the police department, one of the greatest things I think that we can do as mayor is be a mediator and work between our community and our police department. I would like nothing more than to have our police officers be out and about, walking about, that our citizens of New Berlin actually know them by name, that we become part of a unit and we work together. And again, we lay our differences aside and we work together and be willing to work as mayor, work within our community and draw each one closer together, work as a mediator between our community and our police department. And thank you.
There's now an opportunity for you to do a rebuttal if you choose to do that. Ms. Showers, do you choose to do a rebuttal?
Not a rebuttal, but in addition, I believe too that the role of mayor, in addition to being at the monthly meetings, is a liaison, and I heartily agree with that, and a facilitator between the community and the police and the council.
Mr. Benfer.
I would just concur with Ms. Showers that no matter who the community decides for this position, it must be someone that is willing to put themselves out there and work with all parties. Thank you again.
All right. The following 3 questions now will be for the full panel. How should the Borough Council approach the issue of trash burning? And we begin the answers to hear from the Borough Council candidates. And Ms. Finkbiner, you will be first.
Thank you. Well, trash burning has been a difficult and contentious point in town. We do have a burning ordinance in town, and when people make complaints, that goes to the police department, and the police department handles those complaints. As far as banning burning in town, I feel like that has to be up to what the entire town wants, not just what council wants to do or what a few people want to do. Unfortunately, the majority of the people in town want to keep their burn barrels. I don't feel that it is the job of government to tell people what to do on their own property. Whether I don't burn, and I don't believe that people should burn, but it's not council's job to tell people what to do.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes, I believe the ordinance as we have written is a good balance, that it restricts burning to items like paper, cardboard, and not trash. That's the big difference. I think when you get into burning trash, you get harmful chemicals, noxious smells. And I think that tends to be the problem. I think we've made a significant amount of progress. I worked with the police department quite a bit on how do we follow up with people who are breaking the ordinance. And for the most part, it was some warnings and some corrections that the police officers had to give out. And most people stopped. Most people weren't aware that they could only burn on certain days and that there were certain products they couldn't. There were a couple people who were more committed to burning things that they weren't supposed to, and we did address those as well. So I think it's about enforcing the ordinance as written.
Mr. Palermo.
I agree with Ms. Hamilton. I think we should enforce the ordinances as they're written. For the most part, people do abide by the ordinances, but there are some inconsiderate people that will burn anything they want, any time of the day, any time of the week. So I think we have to just monitor that and enforce the ordinances as written.
Mr. Wertz.
Yeah, I think you basically have to do what the whole town, the majority of the whole town wants to do. There isn't many. There's a select few people out there that will burn, like Miss Hamilton said, that they'll burn whatever they want. And it's just a matter of we need to catch them, find out who they are, and the police department has to handle it. But I'm gonna say 98% of this town, if they have a burning barrel, they burn what they're supposed to burn. It's only a select few. It's not that bad. It's not out of control. Thank you.
Mr. Farmer.
We have a perfectly good burning ordinance. It's one of many good ordinances we have, and those ordinances should be enforced. We have a police force, and that's one of the things they do. And so I'm happy to see that ordinance and others enforced. I have myself no interest in banning burning. I don't think we need to ban burning. And we have a police force, we should use it.
We now have an opportunity for rebuttal if you choose to do that. Ms. Finkbiner, do you choose to give a rebuttal? Ms. Finkbiner?
No, I have nothing else to say. Thank you.
Ms. Hamilton?
No, thank you.
Mr. Palermo?
No, thank you.
Mr. Wertz?
Nope, no, thank you.
Mr. Farmer?
Well, if I'm elected, I certainly want to bring up to council the issue of uniformly enforcing all our ordinances.
Okay. We will now hear from the candidates for mayor, and we will begin with Mr. Benfer.
Thank you again for the question. I want to, once again, there are many issues, and we will, over the years, we will always have different issues, but we must always be willing to work together. And we must never, never be, our first action should never be to take the liberty away from somebody. We must always be willing to fight for our freedoms. However, with that being said, we must be willing to go after those who are not willing to submit to the ordinances, but we cannot punish everyone. For those that are being law-abiding citizens, we must only punish and take those rights away from those who are unwilling to submit. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Ms. Shower?
I agree with the enforcement of the ordinances as they appear on the books, and knowing full well that this has been an issue in New Berlin and has been presented to Borough Council for over 15 years. My husband and I have, over the years, have written the New Berlin Herald, the town newspaper and newsletter, and that issue, burn barrel etiquette, has been cited in there and fully explained with the ordinance. We could do better. I think we can get the information out better to landlords and also their renters, and just make sure that everyone has the correct information. Another thing for those who oppose questioning whether you should burn paper or recycle it, we could think about getting a shredder so that we can even decrease the amount of burning in the community. And I think there are other issues there too.
Mr. Benfer, do you choose to do a rebuttal?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Showers, do you choose to do a rebuttal? I'm sorry, did you
No,
answer?
thank you. I'm good.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right. Okay, let's go to the next question. How should the Borough Council approach the issue of property maintenance? And in this case, we will begin with the candidates for mayor. And Ms. Showers, you're first up.
This is a real tricky one in terms of property maintenance. And it can be a situation where what someone would consider junk on someone's front porch, someone else or the owner could consider their treasures. And I know that it's an issue when it's brought before legal authorities. The interesting thing is I've gone around and I've asked other mayors and other borough officials how they've handled this ordinance and other ordinances and this issue and other issues and how they've solved them. And I will cite Steel & Scrope that has an amazing success with all sorts of ordinances, with a door hanger citing the ordinance violation or the issues with property maintenance. And the officials get in the scene only when there's non-compliance. And I think it's fair and consistent and transparent that way, and fair.
Mr. Benfer.
Oh, this is a tough one. I agree. To choose to look at someone's property, if they are literally letting it run down and it is an image to the community that is something that we feel is not wanted, it does not look well in a community. It's something that's hard for us to do, but we must be willing to reach out to the people. There may be some issues where there are people in our town who maybe because of physical reasons that they become elderly and they are unable to take care of their property. And there again, that is our community that we should be willing to step up and maybe come alongside of some of our older citizens and ask them, is there a way I could help? Is there something I can do to help you that maybe you're struggling? And again, it's about community. And so, but we need to be very, very careful. Thank you.
Ms. Showers, would you choose to do a rebuttal?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Mr. Benfer.
No, ma'am.
All right, we will now go to the candidates for Borough Council, and we will begin with Ms. Hamilton.
Yes, I think everyone wants New Berlin to look its best. I know my house is right along Market Street, and I try and fix up my gardens and make things look nice. But I also know that it is a question of freedom. It's a question of personal expression as well. Different people have different aesthetic senses, and I think that's okay. And as Mr. Benfer brought up, we do have some elderly, and not just elderly, we have some people on fixed incomes that might need support and help bring their property up to an acceptable level. But I've also been involved as mayor, and the council has been involved in the last several years. We've had condemned properties that we've had to deal with. And I think it's separating out the maintenance issues that become a danger to the homeowners, renters, and community versus just, I don't like that person's aesthetic sense. I think aesthetic sense we need to put aside. I think health, safety issues, that's what we need to help our citizens with. Thank you.
Mr. Palermo.
Yes, I agree with all that's been said. I do believe that New Berlin's been a nice, quaint little town to raise a family, and most people take pride in their property. I think we owe it to everyone if we detect poor maintenance, that we pay a visit to them and just ask what the problem is and ask, if they have any plans on cleaning the place up. But that's all I have to say.
Mr. Wertz.
No, I agree. We only have 2 or 3 properties here in town that are pretty messed up, and there's a lot of junk and stuff around. And one's right down the street from me, but it's like you said, one person's junk is another person's treasure. And you can say all you want to that person, but they're just somebody that's bullheaded, that's not going to want to clean up their property. So I think even if you step to them and tell them, about cleaning up their property, they're not going to do it anyhow. It's just the way they are. And I feel that, I know we have a code enforcement officer over here, and I think he ought to get involved in it. To see if he can help now take the pressure off the borough. Thank you.
Mr. Farmer.
Well, I agree that there are special cases, but there are certain minimum standards that should be maintained, and that comes with being part of a community. And I'm a firm believer that if you stop small problems, you can often stave off big problems. We do have ordinances against tall weeds, for example, or having your sidewalk be safe. And much like the issue of burning, uniform enforcement of that ordinance will go a long way to help some of these problems.
Ms. Finkbiner.
Thank you. It is Finkbiner. Yes, we do have ordinances about junk cars, unregistered cars. We have ordinances about high grass and weeds, and we enforce those. And a lot of people don't understand that when you're enforcing an ordinance, it takes time to go through the process of that, and that there's a process of going to the homeowner and presenting them the ordinance and saying, this is what it says, and you have to do this. And then when they don't clean it up, you come back and you say, well, we're enforcing the ordinance now, and you have this long to clean it up, or you're going to be fined. And then there's another process where they go to court. And there are some people that just absolutely won't clean it up no matter how far you go. So we are in the process of these houses that people are talking about, of getting them cleaned up, but it's a process.
Ms. Hamilton, would you like to do a rebuttal?
No, thank you.
Mr. Palermo?
No, thank you.
Mr. Wertz?
No, thank you.
Mr. Farmer?
No, thank you.
Ms. Finkbiner?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
All right. Our next question is this. How should the Borough Council approach the issue of police presence and ordinance enforcement? We will begin this question with the candidates for Borough Council, and we will begin with Mr. Palermo.
Could you repeat the question again?
I sure will. How should the Borough Council approach the issue of police presence and ordinance enforcement?
Well, I think the Borough Council is enforcing the issue. They have, from what I understand, four, I believe, part-time police officers that have been patrolling. I take it enforcing the ordinances that are already established. So I think they're on the right track at this point.
Mr. Wertz?
I agree. I think the police department's on the right track. The Borough Council's doing a good job with the police department. And it's like I said, you're just gonna have some people that no matter how much pressure you put on them are not gonna want to clean up their properties. And that's, I think now that we got the 4 officers now, I think that's gonna make a difference, because if they have to keep going back and back and back, the fines are gonna start mounting up, and they're eventually gonna have to clean up the properties, because who can afford to keep paying money if they get fined for it? Thank you.
Mr. Farmer.
Ordinance enforcement is particularly important for the New Berlin Police because the state police will not do that. Only the local police can do that. So that is something we completely rely on our police force for doing. So that's one thing. But we have limited hours from our police. They cannot solve every problem. They cannot go around addressing every issue that's out there. I think the Borough Council could do some good by helping guide the conversation about how we can best make use of our limited police presence.
Ms. Finkbiner.
Okay, so our police department for the last 8 years has been fairly stable. Our officers give us their time on their time off. So they choose to be here when they could be with their families. So, we have 4 officers and we have a chief right now, and they enforce the ordinances to the best of their ability. We are presenting a budget where we've increased their hours this year, but it's not council's job it is absolutely not council's job to direct the police department to enforce certain ordinances over others, or to say you need to be in this part of town more than you need to be in this part of town. We can't direct them to do that, because we are not in the chain of command with the police department. They use their discretion that way. But I feel that they are doing a wonderful job with traffic, with ordinance enforcement. Thank you.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes, so this question's near and dear to my heart. As mayor, we had 100% turnover in our police department for a variety of reasons. And in the last year, we hired our new chief, Josh, as well as our 4 other officers. I think we now have a really good team, and not just a good team of officers, but they're able to give us their time and spread out the time. We have a younger officer, Riley, who will take any hours you can give them. That was always one of the issues we had before. It's, as Julie said, that they're doing it on their part-time. They usually have another role. So I think we've made huge strides, and I believe a strong police presence, just visible presence with the car out, going around, helps not just New Berlin, but also all the people who fly through New Berlin and cause us issues. So I think ordinances need to be enforced consistently, and they're doing it. Thank you.
Now have the opportunity for rebuttal. Mr. Palermo, do you choose to do a rebuttal?
No rebuttal. I just want to concur with Ms. Hamilton as to, I believe that the police are doing a great job. I see them out from time to time, and that's all we want. That's it.
Mr. Wertz, do you choose to do a rebuttal?
Yeah, I think since we got all the new officers down here, they're doing a great job. I see them driving throughout town multiple times during the day or during the week, and things are slowing down. I don't hear very many cars going like maniacs up over the mountain anymore. They're pretty good. That's all I got.
Mr. Farmer.
Yes, I'd like to clarify that I said I'd like to see the Borough Council guide a conversation about police activity. I understand that the Borough Council cannot give directives to the police, but I think we'd all benefit if the Borough Council and the mayor and the police were in regular conversation along with all the residents of town, understanding what are the issues and concerns.
Ms. Finkbiner.
No, thank you. I'm fine, ma'am.
All right. Ms. Hamilton.
I just wanted to add that I think it's the visible presence that helps the most. And we've heard from our police officers that a lot of the out-of-town residents who, well, not out-of-town residents, the out-of-towners have really gotten the word that we're a strong presence and we will enforce our ordinances and we will enforce speed. Thanks.
Okay, the mayoral candidates, Mr. Benfer, do you, you're first.
I would like to say and agree with what Julie had said, that you cannot, the board or the mayor's office cannot enforce. We cannot tell the officers really what to do. It is, we can support them. And I know this may be an unorthodox way of thinking about it, but I believe one of the ways that we can best reach out to our community, no matter what it is, if it's trash burning or it's grass or what any ordinance it may be, is within education, that we get out there and we talk and we speak with our community and educate them on what is proper etiquette in the community. But no law will ever, no ordinance will ever change the heart of a man. It is changing the heart of the why in the heart. And only that can be done is if we get out there and allow people to come together in a community and they want to do what's right because it's right. Thank you.
Ms. Showers.
I believe that the enforcement of the ordinances can be handled a lot more easily with education too. I was going to say that in terms of prevention. Once, I think I mentioned just a few minutes ago too, in another situation, that if a flyer were to go out to all of the residents to let them know that we have 5 police officers, 4 officers and a chief on board, and they do enforce ordinances, and that we're all liable to following them and being mandated to be aware of them. But we can't be fully aware if we don't have the information. So just a flyer to everybody and letting them know, let all of us know what some of the main jobs of the police are, and that we will be enforcing them.
Okay, Mr. Benford, do you choose to do a rebuttal?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Showers.
I just wanted to add the consistency, that I think that what we were talking about in terms of education, not just talking, but having a written piece too, would create community by having the same rules for everybody and understanding. And I think that's really important, the communication.
All right, we're now ready to move to league questions, and we have 2 of them for you. The first one is this: mayors and borough councils must work together for the benefit of their constituents. What will you personally do to ensure a good relationship? We will begin with the mayoral candidates. Ms. Showers, please.
I feel that it all begins at the Borough Council meetings. And I've really felt this over the past 2 years since I've been attending, that we all must work together. And I feel that, as I mentioned before, I think we go in stressed. We've created an atmosphere of us versus them. We've created an atmosphere of divide and conquer. And I hate to say it that strongly, but that's the feeling, whether it's between the mayor and the council, the mayor, the council, and the public who are speaking, the mayor, the council, the public, and the residents. And there are ways of making that more gentle and loving and kind and respectful. And one of those is just by having name tags, for example, in front of all of the players at the council meetings. Another thing is to have the mayors and the council working together with the public and smiling and in welcoming the public who comes to speak.
Mr. Benfer.
Once again, I would say my approach is probably very unorthodox, but I don't want my community to come out to a council meeting to find out who I am. And it doesn't matter if I'm elected or not. One of my greatest concerns is to be part of this community. And the best way that I can make that impact is becoming part of it. And I would invite anyone. It doesn't matter if you agree with me or disagree with me. I would invite anyone from town to come to my home and sit down and have a cup of coffee. And I want people to know me when I'm going down the street as a man of character, a man of integrity. And I best believe that it is my approach to go out into the community, to reach out into the community and let people know that we're there for them. You know, I unashamedly am a Judeo-Christian, a conservative Judeo-Christian, and I believe that Jesus taught us very well to love your neighbor as yourself, to treat others the way you want to be treated. And I thank you.
Ms. Showers, do you choose to do a rebuttal?
Yes, I agree with what was just said, and I think it's there's a visible possibility for community building, and I think this is one situation where it really works to see and be seen. And I agree, to be on the streets and talking with people wherever it may be, whether, and particularly at the council meetings, but also on the streets and in homes. And I heartily endorse that kind of connection.
Mr. Benfer, do you choose to do a rebuttal?
No, ma'am.
All right, we will now move to the Borough Council candidates, and we will begin with Mr. Wertz.
I think the biggest thing this whole town needs to do, anybody that knows me, if I'm walking down the street, I'm gonna say hi to you. And if I know you, I'm gonna stop and talk to you. I don't shut anybody out. And I expect that when you go to a borough council meeting, if somebody comes there and they have a problem, we must sit, we must listen, and we must try to work everything out. The whole reason we're getting into this is has to do what's the right and the best thing for this little town. One person can't make all the decisions. So anybody comes to that meeting, we have to sit, we have to listen, we have to work with them. We can't shut anybody out. Thank you.
Mr. Farmer.
So I agree that we need everyone on Borough Council and the mayor to be known by a lot of people in town. I'd like to see Borough Council meetings be well attended and be a happy place. In my job, the thing I like most is I help diverse groups of people figure out common goals and come up with a good plan to reach those goals. And I think that's going to be helpful in Borough Council and talking both within Borough Council and between Borough Council and the rest of the community.
Ms. Finkbiner.
Speaking directly to the question, I feel like in my experience on council, when we separate into committees, when we work together on committees, I think that's a great way to get to know each other. And then we know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and then we can support each other in those strengths and weaknesses. So directly with the mayor and the borough council, I think that that's how we work together best is we have many committees that we all work on when we work on ordinances and when we work on personnel committee and finance committee, and we know, and then we find out each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we can support each other and be there for each other and work as a unit. And I think that's the great thing about the council now is that we've gotten to know each other really well, and we support each other and we're there for each other. Thank you.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes, I would say the most important thing about building a good working relationship is the relationship part. You have to get to know each other and get to know each other outside of council, whether it's on serving committees or as part of activities or as part of bringing communities together. I think we all see each other as human, and we see each other as people working towards a good life and good goals. I think we all define that differently, and that's okay. But once we understand where the other people are coming from, I think that's what builds the foundation of a good relationship. And I think it's really important to serve effectively, that we figure out what the common problems are, what are the community problems, and then how do we solve them? And then looking at the team and whose strengths can be brought to bear on which problems and how we can address that together. Thank you.
Mr. Palermo.
Yes, good communication, that's the key. That's the key to all organizations I've been involved with, and also employment. So honesty and just being upfront about what's going on, what your opinions are, makes a big difference in building relationships. Thank you.
Mr. Wertz, would you choose to do a rebuttal?
No, thank you.
Mr. Farmer,
No, thank you.
Ms. Finkbiner,
No, thank you.
Ms. Hamilton,
No, thank you.
Mr. Palermo.
No, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our final question. And that question is this: how would you work towards sustaining productive relationships within the council and the various committees? We will begin with the Borough Council candidates, and we will begin with Mr. Farmer.
I think the main point's already been made, and that is communication. We need to know what's happening. So I've actually spoken in front of Borough Council expressing my frustration that I'm not actually aware of what the committees are doing. So I'd like to see better committee reports at Borough Council so that people other than on the committee and on the council actually know what's going on. The more people know about what's happening, the more they can participate and help and be useful. And so that's something I would hope to strive, and it definitely will have long-term benefits.
Ms. Finkbiner.
Absolutely. Speaking, basically continuation of the last question. I think sustaining your relationship is just, making those connections, working together, supporting each other during the meetings. I think a lot of it is trust. I think within council that that has to be the basis of the relationship, is trust as well, and assuming integrity and working towards a common goal. I think is a major part of sustaining our productivity on council. Thank you.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes, I think the biggest way to improve committees and the working relationship with council is including more citizens that aren't on the council. I think we've seen it on activities committee, and we've seen it in other areas. There's a lot of times we can pull in more people from the community and have more voices be heard. And that way, I think there's more transparency, there's more involvement. It's not the same few people always doing the same things. It's not the same thinking. I think one of the things that I see a lot is that our younger people in the community haven't been involved, whether that's younger working families or young people, period. And I think they're really a lot of the future, and we need to make sure they're pulled in so that the council is looking not just towards the residents that show up, but pulling the community into action. Thank you.
Mr. Palermo.
Yes, as Mr. Farmer alluded to, providing feedback through reports and updates as far as the status of current issues. And also, as Ms. Hamilton brought up, including people from the community. Oftentimes, people will take part as long as they're asked. We have to approach people and ask them for input into issues. And I think that will help.
Mr. Wertz.
It's just got to be You just have to have great communication, and I agree with a lot of them. You have to get the younger people in this community involved. Once they get involved, they're gonna be willing to help, and they have a lot of great ideas. For too long, even like when I was in the fire company, for too long, we depended on the older generation. They had a lot of great ideas, but the younger generation, they need to start being involved in this town. So if we can get more people, younger people involved in some of the committees, some of the town people, that would be great. But it's all got to start with communication. Thank you.
Mr. Farmer, do you choose to do a rebuttal?
Yes, I'd like to say I really loved what Ms. Hamilton said. Because of sunshine laws, there can't be more than 3 borough council members on a committee. And there's lots of issues where they need more skills than 3 people from borough council, and involving members of the community is a great way to do that.
Ms. Finkbiner.
Speaking to the idea of putting at-large members on committees, there's very few committees that we could do that with. You couldn't do it with personnel or finance, or you couldn't do it with the police committee. There'd be very few committees you could do that with. We do it with study committees when we're doing grants and things. So there's some committees that we form for special reasons that we could put ad hoc members on, and we do that. So, but there's committees that involve business of the borough, you can't do that.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes, is where it's appropriate to involve other people. I just think we need to pull in more of the community, create more productive relationships, and refer more things to committees or special study teams. Sometimes our council meetings have gone on rather long because we're trying to solve all the problems and make all the decisions within the meeting. I think more things could be referred out. Thank you.
Mr. Palermo.
No, thank you.
Mr. Wertz.
No, thank you.
All right. The candidates for mayor, we will begin with Mr. Benfer.
One of the greatest ways, although you may not be able to pull the whole entire community into a single meeting, however, we can go out and speak to our community and listen and ask them, could you have any ideas about your community? I'm surprised that one of the questions wasn't asked about the school tonight, but I know that there's a lot of concern about what's going on with the school right now. And we can go out and we can ask, what's your opinion? And there's one thing that I can see in the borough council that they went ahead and posted on their website, asking the community, what would you like to see done? And I think that's a great step, and it's a testimony to the work that's already being done on council right now, that they are willing to reach out to the community and ask, what do you want to see done? What would you like? And that is the only way that we'll ever, it shouldn't be the council by ourselves and then the community. We are here as servants. Thank you.
Ms. Showers.
I think the key words in that question are productive relationships within the council and the various committees, and how do you make them productive? And I agree with everything that's already been said regarding involving the community. I think what also has to be understood and realized is that over the past 2 years since I've been attending the meetings regularly, there have been community people there and residents with concern. And oftentimes it seems as though they've been dismissed or a response has been divisive. And I think we need to embrace all of these approaches to certain problems. And to me, it goes to 3 little words. One's a 2-letter, one's a 3-letter, one's a 4-letter. And one is, we've got to work with rather than against the community. And that's already been said. And the other ones are focusing on how and if. It's not so much when certain problems come up, not how it can be solved, not if it can be solved, but how it can be solved. And more people give more ideas. Thank you.
Mr. Benfer, do you choose to do a rebuttal?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Showers.
Thank you.
Well, we've now finished up with the questions and we're ready to go to the closing statements. A reminder that you have 2 minutes for your closing statements, and a 30-second sign will be held up to remind you when you're getting close to the end. We will begin with the candidates for mayor, and Ms. Showers, you're up first.
Okay, like I said in the beginning, that New Berliners love New Berlin, and I've been here for 40+ years, but I don't think it matters exactly how many years you've been here. It's how committed you've been and the contributions you've made, and that show what you want to do, what you have done, and it's not just a listing, but what you continue to want to do and what you're willing to give. And where I left off was that I really believe that it's important to know that my position is not to take a strong stance or position on either side without listening. And this has been said over and over today. And a lot of folks want to be heard, but haven't been asked. And that's really easy to do in terms of what I'd said before, again, to be seen, to see and be seen, and to listen. And so my position is to be an active listener, a creative thinker to help solve the problems and provide solutions that are desperately needed, and to use a pandemic term, a booster for this town to find consensus and a sense of community. New Berlin's a special town, and I don't want to take it for granted or for others to take it for granted. It has past charm, current charm, and quaintness, and an irresistible reputation that we need to maintain. Thank you.
Mr. Benfer.
I believe that we would all agree and concur that we all want a safe town. We want a place that we can live and feel safe, and we can raise our families and see our grandchildren grow. And we can all agree on that. When I was approached this year and was asked if I would be considered running for mayor, when I started going around and talking to people, I heard stories about how friendships were lost over issues such as the burn barrel issue. And it was one of the things that hit me the hardest, that people would literally end friendships over something as simple as a burn barrel. I have one in my yard, but I would get rid of it if it meant my friendship. And so it is my goal to really get out into community, that we become one, we become unified. This is the United States of America, and we need to be willing to go out and unify over our differences. I told my wife many years ago when we got together that I wouldn't promise her the moon and the stars, but I would promise her that her and I would disagree many times. But I made a commitment to her that I would do everything in my power to do what was right and to save our marriage. And I'll do the same thing for this community, that I would fight for this community. We may divide over issues, but we must work together and we must communicate. And we've sit down and have a conversation. Thank you.
Borough Council candidates, we will now give you an opportunity to give your closing statement, and we begin with Ms. Finkbiner.
Thank you. So what I'd like to end with is that I've been on Borough Council for a long time. I've been doing the business of government in New Berlin for 15 years, and it is the business of government. It's not always fun, and it's not glamorous, and it's not a party, but it's important, and it is rewarding. It's not financially rewarding, certainly, but it is rewarding in that we get things done, and we get the processes completed when, and it takes a long time, and government runs slow, and government doesn't always run the way we want it to run, and government processes aren't the way we'd like them to be. And the last thing I'd like to say is that I'm a firm believer in small government and the independence of the taxpayer. We do pay for some services in New Berlin. We have a few things, but I do not think we need to expand our services or reach our agendas into areas that should be taken care of by the property owners themselves. Government overreach is definitely something that I watch for and of which I am not in favor. When we are sworn into office, we vow to support and uphold the Constitution of the United States. I take that seriously, very seriously. The Constitution is designed to limit the power of government, and I take that very seriously. And the reason I serve is because it's the way I serve my country, and that's why I serve on council. Thank you.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes, in closing, I'd like to say we have issues in New Berlin, but overall we're a great town. And I'm a problem solver. I'm pragmatic and I'm forward looking. So it's important that we bring all of the community together as much as we can and solve the issues that can be solved and figure out how to set aside those that can't. We are never all going to agree on everything as a town, and that's a good thing. Diversity of opinion, diversity of thought is incredibly important, and that's how we become a stronger town and a more cohesive town by working together and understanding points of view. I think serving on council as opposed to serving on mayor will help me serve the community and serve in government in a more active role. We have a lot of problems to solve. We have a lot of things we can do to strengthen the community. And that's where council comes in, because as much as we get tied up in national politics, it's the politics right here in New Berlin that matter most. This has the most impact on people's day-to-day lives. And I want to impact a positive growth and positive change so that New Berlin becomes an even better place to live than it already is. Thank you.
Mr. Palermo.
Well, as I said earlier, my wife and I have lived here for 42 plus years. We raised 3 children in this town. It's a great place to raise kids. I plan on living here the rest of my life. I like being a part of town. I served on many committees and many organizations. I like to help my neighbors. I like to be a part of decision-making for the town. I think we work well together when we put our heads together. 2 heads are better than 1. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Wertz.
Yeah, just in closing, we have like I said, I lived here 28 years. We have a great little town. For the most part, it's quiet. Yeah, you have a couple of little incidents, but the one thing I learned in my job for 20 years, if something happens, take your time, talk it out. Talking out problems goes a long way. You talk before you react. We have, like I said, we have a great little town right here. I love living here. And I'm to the point now where I want to help out in any way I can. That's all I got. Thank you.
Mr. Farmer.
I think more people in New Berlin should be involved with their local government. So that's why I'm seeking a term on Borough Council. I hope that in the future, we see a greater variety of people involved. My job involves teams of people working together in pursuit of long-term goals. And that describes the Borough Council, members of the community working together to ensure the long-term success of the town. One thing I've learned is that successful teams require an effective leader. In my view, leader is a role that can be learned. The leader helps the team to communicate, to stay on target, to be efficient and effective, and also to be thoughtful and realize when the group has all the information needed to make a good decision, and when it doesn't, and a decision would be hasty. That type of leadership is what I think the Borough Council needs. Thank you.
Well, this brings us to the end of the formal part of this presentation. And to the candidates, I would like to say thank you for participating in this event. The League appreciates your willingness to present yourselves to the voters at this event. To those of you who are watching this event, the League believes that it is not only important to vote, but that it is important to be an informed voter. By watching this event, you are showing that you plan to be an informed voter. And now it is really up to all of us, the voters of Union County, to go out and vote on Tuesday, November 2nd. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you enjoyed watching this event and have an interest in joining our league, please contact us through our Facebook page, League of Women Voters, Lewisburg Area, or on our website, lwv.lewisburgarea.org. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank